How's everybody doing today? Fantastic. Good. It's been an adventurous time. Life gets more interesting every day in the United States, as you can tell. This will be an interesting lecture. Now, it's a little bit early, but Merry Christmas, because that's coming up faster than probably anybody wants, as it seems to always do. And for spring, I get my thing here. The ultimate lie. What could be I asked everybody, what do you think the ultimate lie is? I asked, what do you think it is? I didn't get close to the right answer. I didn't get close, not even within 1,000 miles. The ultimate lie. What could it really be? A world of tests. I've had fun with this lecture because basically all health is today is tests. They just run tests. They run tests till they run out of tests. Then if you complain, you get Prozac because they can't run any more tests. Tests. The paleocardiologist. This doesn't refer to cavemen, especially after my lecture today, but it's a way of eating. It's the way, as a Polak, I eat like this because I stay awake when I eat like this. Very simple. I want to thank my family, my patients, my staff. I have a great staff. My family's here, my kids are here. Everybody's excited for this strange lecture that my staff isn't aware what this lecture is. My staff is waiting to see what I'm going to talk about. I appreciate you supporting DHS over the years. That's been fine. We have an online store. I'm not going to peddle anything. It's all at the end of the lecture that you're not going to see. It will be on YouTube. This lecture is important. We're going to talk about some very important things. And I expect you all to be different when you leave today. So please, I appreciate supporting the office. I have a very expensive office. I have a very high-paid staff, which does a great job. Make it easy on me, and I'll keep doing these. You know, retirement doesn't have to be that far from me. Support the office, and I will continue to put on medicine shows. Now, the nutritional part is at the end. I'm not doing it today. It will be online. Great things about your brain, about your mind, things that you'll enjoy. This will be a unique experience today. This will be a little one. None of you have gone on this journey before, so you'll enjoy your new journey. Now, I got a real problem here. What just happened in New England? What was that you just watched? Wait a minute, there's 250,000 miles of archaeology in 6 states. You don't know anything about this. You know nothing about this. It would wrap around the world 10 times. 6 states. Who did this? This has purposely been kept from you. 240,000 miles. Well, you don't even know why they built them. They don't even know who did it. This is an unusual lecture. The lecture I was going to do was pushed out of my head. I was impressed to do this lecture. This is an unusual lecture. I hesitated for a second. I pictured Jonah sitting in the belly of the whale and said, absolutely not. I am not. All right, I'll do it. I didn't plan on doing this lecture. This lecture was planned for me. It's not surviving Earth. First, I'm going to apologize to everybody. I apologize to you before the autoimmune lecture. I'm going to apologize twice before this lecture. This is not going to be politically correct. I'm sick of political correctness, as most everybody else is. I mean, no offense to anyone. We're all at different paths in life. I didn't expect to be here in my life, actually. But I've seen as time has gone on, everybody wants to know what's going on in this office. So as the guy from the back of the class ends up in front of you, this was not ever in my game plan. God has his people in all churches. I believe at this time in history, there are good people in all the world, all the churches, the mosques, the Sikhs, the Hindus. We have a world of wonderful people that have not been pushed yet. We'll cover that later. Let's see, I said mosques, temples, Buddhists, Sikhs. This is for everybody. All religions, atheists. I want atheists to pay attention. I want pagans to pay attention. I want heathens to pay attention today. I want all of you to pay attention. My journey is to make sense. Nothing made sense in my life. When I was going to the pediatrician, it wasn't making sense. I went to the pediatrician, he tried to poison me. It was obvious to me. My friends didn't go, I went. It was a stepping stone down. I got sick of it. I bailed on him at 13. The fluoride trays, the mercury, I did all this stuff. My friends weren't. So I bailed at 13. Things started to change. How far could this passably go? Let's make some sense. So the fluoride trays, the mercury, the vaccines, the antibiotics, well, I went through all that, and about 13, we're done. To me, that seemed like it. As life went on, JFK. I remember walking down coming home from kindergarten, and the president was shot. Well, it made sense till we saw the Zapruder film. Nothing made sense after that, did it? How many people really think Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy? Oklahoma, that didn't make sense. How many people remember Oklahoma? Boy, that fertilizer's pretty rough. That's all I know. That's a pretty anybody in the military just shrugged their shoulders and went, oh well, I guess. 9/11. Well, that made sense for how long did 9/11 make sense? A little bit. Then all of a sudden, this ain't making sense anymore. We've been through the tooth fairy. I had the tooth fairy. Anybody have the tooth fairy? Who had the tooth fairy? So you had tooth fairy. Did you have Santa Claus? Everybody had Santa Claus. Now, the Santa Claus part, you have to plug your ear. No, it's a real thing. Easter bunny. Easter eggs. Easter, very interesting. Struggling to find the connection. GMO is better than nature. Roundup is okay on your food. Margarine's better than butter. When does this stop? When is enough enough? You can keep your doctor. Raising the debt doesn't raise the debt ceiling. It's only up $8 trillion since what's-his-name sat in the chair over there. Only $8 trillion. But it's not going up. Now this makes sense to them. ISIS is contained. Really? Okay. Collapsing the border is the best thing for the country. Collapsing the border, best thing for the country. Cancer drugs cause cancer. Antidepressants cause suicide. Stomach problems cause stomach problems. I struggle with the moon landing. I'm going to get it right out. I struggle with this. My cell phone has more computational power than NASA did. I don't know how that thing went to the moon. I don't know. Things are murky in my life. Nothing seemed to make sense. They got women on estrogen that gives them cancer. Then everybody runs in circles to give money to the people that caused the cancer. I watched all the men in Northville run through Northville in dresses, in pink bikinis and bras. I took a picture of them through the windshield because men aren't supposed to dress like women. This ain't how the country runs. I felt bad for them. They've been brainwashed. I honestly think we have to force people to buy insurance for care they don't want with a deductible they can't afford. How close is this? I honestly think we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Not even begin to scratch the surface. How compromised do you really think you are? I think you're completely compromised. I think you're so far compromised you have no clue to the extent you've been compromised. You'll understand shortly. Mentally, look at the people. I think mental illness is rampant today. I see crazy people everywhere I go, and I can spot you a mile away. I'm very, very good at it. I can spot you everywhere. That German plane, that pilot, that German plane, suicide boy, I'd have beat him up at recess just for fun. One look into that dude's eyes, you're going to do something one day. I'm just going to take you out now and get it over with. He had that mischievous look in his eye. I see this everywhere in mental illness, physically. I walk. I get intelligently adjusted. I do decent exercise. I take a pile of pills. I'm physically, we walk 43 miles through Disney in 4 days. I walk. You know what it's like to just walk? I walk. You know what the world looks like physically? Now watch everybody walk. They've been misaligned for so long, they're used to it, they just live on Advil. They can't even walk right without looking like they're in pain. Emotionally. Tell somebody that you didn't like something. Tell the kid he didn't do his assignment right. You'll have the parents on the teacher's back for the kid being an idiot. Historically. Spiritually. You know what I get to listen to spiritually in here? You know what I get to listen to? It will insult people, so I'm not saying anything yet. Now, how about historically? Could you be historically compromised? I've never talked about historical compromise. Could you? We'll have to see. I bet you have. Now, my Skype patients have said, what happened to your country? What happened to your country? What in the world is going on? Now, to say something to you would be my opinion. I don't want to say my opinion. The people in charge, right now, I'm going to let speak for themselves. Right now. 80% of the people who call themselves Democrats don't have a clue as to political reality. What amazes me is that you could take a group of people who are hard workers and convince them that they should support social programs that were the exact opposite of their own personal convictions. Put a little fear here and there, and you get the people to vote any way you want. The voter is basically dumb and lazy. The reason I became a Democrat operative instead of a Republican was because there were more Democrats that didn't have a clue than there were Republicans. Truth is relative. Truth is what you can make the voter believe is the truth. If you're smart enough, truth is what you can make the voter think it is. That's why I'm a Democrat. I can make Democrat voters think whatever I want them to. That's the guy that steered the last election. That's what he thinks of his party. I said nothing. One of the biggest cover-ups of all time is the cover-up of man's history. During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. And I'm going to tell you something, you better pay close attention because it's going to be hate speech soon. Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted in important matters. Albert Einstein, he was brilliant, wasn't he? Straight atheist, he doesn't care about atheists. The truth is not for all men, but for only those who seek it. How many people are truth seekers here today? Would you say you're really a truth seeker? No, not everybody is. You say you are. Are you really? Doctors want to know why I've been this successful. Well, when I found truth, I acted on it, and I got more. And I acted on that, I got more. Very simple. Get trapped in nonsense, you'll be there forever. So I want to know, truth seekers, all right. What happens if the truth hurts your feelings? What happens if you're not right? You can admit that you're wrong? Can you do that? Most of you can't. Don't act like you can, because you can't. You'll fight till the day you die. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe Grandpa's wrong. Who knows? I want to see if you can admit it. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they've been fooled. Pay attention. This is your special slide. He who controls the present controls the past. He who controls the past controls the future. The 9 colonial colleges. This is a history lecture. It's going to be a hit. There are going to be 5 quotes that I have to use out of a history book. This is a history lecture. The 9 colonial colleges. Harvard was New College, Puritan. College of William and Mary, Church of England. Yale, Puritans. New Jersey, Princeton, Presbyterian. Church of England. Columbia, University of Penn, Brown, Rutgers. You know what these colleges were for? These were missionary colleges. They were to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and his soon second coming to the world. That's what they were for. That's how they were started. The Dark Ages was just done. The truth was lost. These people were to restore the truth. Now, in my life, there's a lot of things. As a typical C student going to public school, we were in Disney for a couple days last week. These kind of things bother me because I've been surrounded by people who've said stuff my entire life that has bothered me. Things bother me. Carl Sagan. In our obscurity and all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It's all up to us. Every time I was around these bright dudes, they're always got propaganda coming out of their mouth, and I'm supposed to sit there and take it because they're 10 times smarter than me. Always. This has bothered me. All these people drive me nuts. Every time they open their mouth, I see straight through them. Do you? Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. To me, everything coming out of nothing is just, they can look at you with a straight face and play that game. And if you question that, you're an idiot. For Pete's sake, you can't get to the bathroom by yourself. I don't think you know what's going on in the rest of the universe. And I don't mean any disrespect to this. For Pete's sake, there's only so much we can understand sitting here, and you make like you got everything figured out. I question that. I think he's been brainwashed. God isn't ever, this guy bothers me the most. God isn't ever received, look at his eyes. God isn't ever received, I can feel him looking at me right now because I'm a chiropractor. If I was a neurologist, he'd look at me, oh, but as a chiropractor, oh, ooh, ooh. God is an ever receding pocket of scientific ignorance. Kind of always favorite with this guy, I like this guy. Then there he is on popular science. How to be an expert in it, he knows everything. How to be an expert in anything. He knows everything. Everything. Amazing to be that smart. These people taught and inspired the generation that taught you and your children. These people taught the teachers that taught your kids. Understand that. There's 4 parts to my lecture. The first 2 are setting up the third. The third one is where things are going to get chippy. This guy, Bill Nye. I watched his creation debate. He did a lousy job. So did the guy that stuck up for creation. He did a lousy job. I'll show you the guy to talk to. I got a half a dozen people that roasted him against the wall, and I'm going to show you who to start with tonight. He's easy to shoot holes in. Now, I have to use 5 quotes from a history book. Very generic quotes. This is a historical lecture, but I have to use quotes. This is all separate parts of this lecture. Introduction, done. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is going to have something to do with life on this earth. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. All right, we got a big road, we got a little road. Well, that's interesting. And when I read the obituaries every day, seems like everybody found heaven somehow. I don't know how that happens. The Smithsonian was established in 1846 by some guy that never visited the United States. That's interesting. After the Civil War, the Smithsonian began to adopt a policy of excluding any evidence of direct foreign influence in America. Excluding. Major John Wesley Powell set this up. Smithsonian has been charged with effectively withholding information that supports the theoretical framework known as cultural diffusionism. What that means is people went all over the world all the time. Smithsonian interfered with that. Its facade gives an impression of nobility and academic prowess, and its cathedral-like architecture exudes an aura of established credibility. The average visitor is not inclined to guess that the carefully arranged displays and tour guide rhetoric are contrived to give them a false impression of America's past. You've been lied to. No, they walk away feeling informed, intrigued, and certain. I've sat with them in my rooms. They know. Really? What is it that you know? Do you know anything? Little do they suspect that they've been royally deceived. Royally deceived. Since its advent, the Smithsonian Institution and its 11 satellite museums have been visited by millions of people from all over the world. It is, according to its own PR spin, dedicated to increase and diffusion of knowledge among men. Is that true? No. The great crime and tragedy of this policy is hard to compute. One glaring result has been the suppression of all out-of-context finds submitted to the museum in naive ignorance of the museum's official policy of suppression. All major universities adopted this policy in conjunction with the official position of the Smithsonian, thus making it impossible to study real American history. The land bridge. Oh, they had to come across the land bridge. That's nonsense. Smithsonian gave you the land bridge. Oh, they had to walk up in Alaska. Total, complete nonsense. How do these bits of knowledge, these prehistoric races in America, get excluded from public education? Consider that prior to the establishment of the Department of Education, the Smithsonian set the tone for the New World Order. The Smithsonian ran the show, and the university did exactly what they told them to do. After that promising beginning, the Smithsonian has been at the center of a vast cover-up of America's true history since the 1880s. Now, I'm not endorsing this man. I don't think religion and politics have any place together. But something that he said. They asked him. They say, Carson, you know, how can you be a surgeon, a neurosurgeon, and believe that God created the earth and not believe in evolution, which is the basis of all knowledge and all science? It's the basis of all. That's your school taught you this. It's the basis of all knowledge and all. Harvard would teach you this. Princeton would teach you this. Yale would teach you this. They'd all teach you this. Now, I have to take a segue. The oldest archaeology is in Armenia. If you want to find Noah's Ark, you go to Armenia. That's where all the literature is. That's where the hieroglyphics are. That's where the petroglyphs are. You'll understand this in a minute. This is a segue that you're not going to understand yet. That's the oldest observatory on the planet. That's 2,000 years predating the Babylonian observatory. They thought that was the oldest observatory. That's 2,000 years before. There is an observatory. It predates the Stonehenge by 2,000 years. They took 50-ton slabs for a third of a mile. There's holes in them. When they took those holes, they mapped the entire constellations through those holes. And they knew where the star Sirius was. They had Sirius lined up. It was 2500 BC or 2800 BC when they had Sirius lined up through the hole because they could go back in the heavens and see when that was made. There's the men who followed the Creator after Noah's Ark. I have to explain. You'll understand this in a minute. Who do you think those were? What does that look like? That's the male symbol. The other group went that way. You're polytheists, you're monotheists. You'll understand this in a minute. You're not going to understand this yet. There's 2,000 petroglyphs in Armenia that have people getting off a boat and animals getting off a boat. There's 2,000 of them. I'm going to show you where to see all this stuff. There's the entire story at this. It's hard to see. You'll see it on the video. Eve taking the fruit, the snake, the tree of good of evil, Adam's reaction, you will be amazed at what's been carved into the stones in Ugastar, Armenia. That's where civilization started after the flood. I'm going to show you how to find all this stuff. It's going to blow your mind when you watch it. There, animals, boats, little creepy crawly things. They're all over the place. There's boats and animals everywhere. Boats and animals, boats and animals. It gets worse. It gets worse. See this? We don't know who did this. We can't do this. None of us can do this. We don't even know who did this. This is all over the place. That's what the Incas did. We don't know who did that. Incas built their stuff on top of them. They went, this is cool, let's keep going. The farther back you go, the smarter people got. We use brick and mortar. We can't even get them close enough. That, we don't even know how they did that. Nobody does. They were smarter than us. There's the Incas. There's the people before the Incas. That's the Incas. They think they had diamond cutting tools to do that. Look at the evolution of most animals, and the record says they got smaller over time, not bigger. However, with all the modern edifices of education built on the theory of evolution and the growing stature of humanity, we can't very well have the Smithsonian running around telling people that we have degenerated from an ancient race of giants who once ruled America. Now can we? Giants that ruled America. I didn't hear about this. Nobody's really told me about this. Why is this a surprise? That's interesting. Giants. You hear games, Jack and the Beanstalk. I remember that one. Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men of men, which were of old men of renown. Now, every book that I said on that quote said, angels came down and mated with men. Evil angels came down. When did angels get creative power? I want to know. Anybody pastors here? When did angels get the power to create? Pastor? You don't know that. Yeah, no, he didn't. So you tell me, everybody thinks angels mated with men for that. It's confusion. New England. How'd you like to have fun putting a 150-ton rock on a pedestal? They did this everywhere for fun. We don't even know how they did it. They had no machinery. There's thousands of these. I Skyped with a patient from Massachusetts. I said, you got rocks all over? He said, we got the strangest things over here. This is this week. You wouldn't believe the things we got over here. Flavius Josephus, the Jewish historian of the first century, they had giants that they displayed all the time. It was normal. They dig up this is one of Noah's guys, and he's 14 feet tall. This was normal stuff. The eyes of the species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as our Abraham Lincoln talked about giants. Abraham Lincoln talked about giants. There was supposed to be a missing link in the 1800s. There's no missing link. That whole thing was a scam. I got to tell you, up, down, middle. You call this what you want. You can call this what you want. Something's going on in this country. There are no missing links. Right here was the beginning of the whole story. I had one of my nice patients in this week. I said, you understand, throughout history, there was no such thing as racism. There was not racism. Racism's a new thing. There was no race stuff. That's how racism started. My son took the evolution class in Northville High School. The class is all over. He said, any questions? My Dylan says, yep, Darwin was a racist. Done. He said, what do you mean? Well, Darwin was a racist. And he said, no, he's not. I said, yeah, he was. So he there's the title of his first book. That's not the second book. Your kid read the second book. That's the first book. Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or The Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Whitey was at the top of the pile. Thank God. That happens to be me. That's where it all started. Your kids are taught racism. There's a pecking order to what Darwin taught. They were taught this in school. You were taught to be racist. It never existed before. Sure, there was slaves. Whoever lost the war became the new slave. I'm 5'9". That's most of us. 5'4" to 5'10". That's most of us. I'm 5'9", probably shrinking. Before this gets any worse. All right, now, how would you prove this? How could you possibly prove this? Well, there's only one way to prove this: history. What's history say? Why don't I hear anything about these things now? Is there a reason I don't hear anything about this stuff? If you look at the archaeological and historical books of the 1800s, you're going to see how profound the change has been in regards to giants. In the 1800s, everybody knew about the giants. The writings of the time reflected that. Everybody talked about it. It was normal. We're going to do some newspaper articles from the 1800s just for fun. Portsmouth Herald, August 17, 1899. They find a 9-foot-tall dude in a hole. Oh, that's probably just a fluke. Hundreds of mounds of embalmed 9-foot giants in the Syracuse Daily Standard. That's 1897. In Mora, Minnesota, Mora was densely inhabited by a race of people who were much further advanced in civilization than the Indians. Hundreds of mounds of 9-foot giants. I don't know anything about this. They gave me gym and recess in school and home ec. Hundreds of mounds, continuing, the mounds around Fish Lake show that a mighty race of people lies slumbering there whose history is as yet unwritten. Who are these people? If that's somebody's wife, she could do some serious yapping with that jaw. There's serious yapping with that jaw. Our teeth, their teeth. Extra giants found on the New York-Pennsylvania state line. 10 or 12 feet high, Philadelphia Times, June 27. This ceiling is 12 feet. You understand that? This ceiling is 12. Where did you put all that stuff at? There. The people would not have been able to walk under that archway. That one. You don't know anything about this, do you? Extra giants. So far, 150 skeletons have been found on the New York-Pennsylvania line, 1885. Scientists who have exhumed skeletons and made careful measurements of the bones say that they are the remains of a race of gigantic creatures compared with which our tallest men would appear pygmies. Pygmies. The skeleton of an 8-foot-tall guy was found in Silver City, New Mexico. They found a 12-foot guy. It's right to the top there, 12 feet. How really putting this in perspective, I was a 6-foot dude at the restaurant. Now you imagine what this dude weighed. You're talking 2,000 pounds. They're talking doing these things by hand. Well, you're trying to determine whether the aliens did it or whether the UFOs did it. That wasn't it. They did it by hand. They were bigger than you, smarter and stronger than you. We've been lied to about everything. The men who opened the grave, the forearm was only 4 feet long. You ever see a 4-foot-long forearm? The chest only had a 7-foot circumference. Only 7 feet. The Smithsonian in 1883 said they got numerous giants. And they had heavy copper bracelets. Copper. That's interesting. Hold on to the copper thing a little bit there. This is a special one. Oh, this is a special one. Lord have mercy. Is this a special one? I wasted so much time in school. You ready? Ready? Yeah. Okay, Nevada news in 1947. Near the Nevada-California-Arizona border, 32 caves within a 180 square mile area were discovered to hold the remains of ancient, strangely costumed 8 to 9 foot giants. They'd been laid to rest wearing the skins of unknown animals similar to sheepskins fashioned into jackets with pants described as prehistoric zoot suits. They were styling giants. The same burial place had been found 10 to 15 years earlier by another man who made a deal with the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian said they never got it. Didn't show up there, apparently. They missed it. Continuing on, another cave led to their sacred hall, which contained carvings of ritual devices and markings similar to those of the Masonic order. A long tunnel from this temple led to a room where Russell said were well-preserved remains of dinosaurs, saber-toothed tigers, imperial elephants, and other extinct beasts were paired off in niches as if on display. In Nevada, 1947. Then they drew pictures of the dinosaurs. You know why? Because they had dinosaurs around them. So they drew the pictures on the wall. You wouldn't draw it if you didn't see it. Deuteronomy, all right? Now, for only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. I'm looking this stuff up in a concordance, all right, Og of Bashan. Moses, I don't have this stuff in my head. Moses defeated the Amorites, who Og was a part of. I had to look this up because I didn't know it. This is about between 1580 and 1450. So now he would have been over this. That was 13 and a half feet tall. That's the rest. So he remained of the remnants of the giants. That was about 1450 BC, and he was 13 feet tall. Monroe County, skeletons of a giant race who averaged 12 feet in height were found by workmen. Several score of the skeletons lie in various positions. The jawbones are large enough to surround a baby's body. In 1914, 9-foot giant, Stephen Point Daily Journal, May 1st, 1886, 9 feet long. The Winona, Minnesota, 10-foot giant, 1883, 10 feet in length, copper hatchet. How many of you men can swing a 25-pound hammer? They found 25-pound hammers next to these people. Arrowheads were 9 inches long. These antique races seem to have had some process for hardening copper. They had copper axes. We can't make a copper axe today. We have no clue how to make a copper axe. They knew how to make a copper axe. 2 boys, 1886, Ellsberg, Ohio, walking around, see a pyramid, go get a shovel, 20 feet long, walled at the base with stone, growing out of several trees. They dug it up. They dug up an 8-foot dude. That was in the paper. This is articles in the paper. This is Jackson, Michigan. The legs are 12-foot body unearthed. The legs are of a great measure. The legs were 6 feet. His legs, right, this is where the bottom of his leg was. This is 6 feet. The legs are of a great length, 6 feet. The fingernail is perfect, a perfectly petrified. That's the only thing, the skin was broken by a shovel where the digger struck it. The features are well preserved. He's a perfectly normal dude, and these were Caucasians. These were mostly Caucasians. 18 feet tall, Austin, Texas. I estimate this man weighed from 2,000 to 2,500 pounds. 2,000 to 2,500 pounds. Wait a minute. When I was in school, they said it came from a monkey. Didn't they say that? I mean, every class said I came from a swamp. What did I just waste my time doing? How many years did I spend there? My God. It was a gigantic brainwashing session. 200 skeletons, and that's Cuyahoga Township. Now, they're 5 or 6 feet below. You know why they're 5 or 6 feet below? There was a flood. This wasn't buried. They were buried by a flood. There really was a flood. 500 cultures believe there was a flood. 500 people legends talk. Everybody talks about a flood except us, because we came from a monkey. The cemetery of the giants. They were 9 feet tall, and they found, you should see the size of their axes. Now their axes are taller than me. I've seen them. 200 skeletons. Now, these skeletons are supposed to belong to a race anterior to the Indians. They'd ask the Indians, what's this? We don't know, it's on us. Everybody tried to blame this was the Indians. This was not the Indians. The Indians know who any of this was. Indian Mounds, Chickasaba, 8 to 10 feet in height, Memphis Daily Appeal, 1870. 7 feet high, Potomac River Giant, 1956. That's surprising, that slipped through the crack. Charleroi Mayo, at the Susquehanna River in Indiana County, Pennsylvania, a major, they call it Indian burial site. They're not Indians. They don't know what else to call them. Altogether, 49 skeletons, the tallest being 8 foot tall. They shipped it to the Smithsonian, but the Smithsonian said they never got it. Again, they just don't seem to get those. They never seem to get those. Why don't they ever get those? There must be a real UPS, FedEx, something's wrong. They just can't seem to. I get all my packages. UPS, FedEx does great. Don't lose my stuff because I said that. Don't lose my stuff because I said that. I'm catching up to my notes. Oh, the 12-foot guy was found by a cop. I said, you got to believe a cop. They don't lie. Sorry, policemen. I have nice cops as patients, actually. 68 skeletons averaging 7 feet tall. I'm 5'9". We're 5'6" to 5'9", most of us. 68 men, Pennsylvania. 8 feet, 7 inches tall, Ohio Science Annual. Hatchets, fun things to find with them. How many could there possibly be? Well, this guy was probably 18 foot tall. His helmet could have fit over all of us. They'll be shipped to New York. I'm sure the Smithsonian will have them on display soon. Ohio is rich in history. Wisconsin is rich in history. Another Ohio giant now seems small. He was only 8 feet tall, 1904. The skull is a bit large enough to fit as a helmet over the average man's head. Do you understand? We're not evolving. We're devolving. We're shrinking. Everything they told you was a lie. Everything. A gigantic man buried next to a ferocious panther. Conant, Ohio. You know what's in Michigan? You don't even have a clue what's in Michigan. My kids want to take off this summer and go find it, because it's here. 1798, Conant, the Western Reserve, Aaron Wright, in 1800, found between 2,000 and 3,000 graves of giants in Ohio. They doubtless refer to a more remote period and are the relics of an extinct race of whom the Indians had no knowledge. None. 7 foot. 8 foot giants wore copper armor. Perfect giant skeleton found. Chicago Tribune confirms a race of giants. Hundreds of burials. Races of giants, 7 to 8 feet in height. Chicago Tribune. This is what they look like. I have a friend that drives a truck. His name's Bill. Bill drives through Wisconsin. I swore him to secrecy on my lecture. I said, Bill, you can't say nothing. Swear you to secrecy. You drive a truck. How many of these things have you seen? He said, for Pete's sakes, they're all over Wisconsin. I drive by these all the time. These are mounds of giants that have been buried. They're all over Ohio. There's only 10,000 in Ohio. Only 10,000. This is what they look like. They're everywhere. Now remember, the easy stuff got picked over. The easy stuff was picked over and hidden. It's hard from here out. So you're not going to find a lot of stuff because everybody, they sold this stuff to museums. This was a job to hunt this stuff down. and they manufactured stuff and fooled people. There's phony relics out there. That's what you got to sift through. Everything they found, people realized, geez, we can make money selling this stuff. Oh, yes, you can make money selling this stuff. So my truck driver friends, for Pete's sakes, that's all over Wisconsin. That's what those are? Yes. They look just like that. 15 miles of embankments. Do you know what it's like? One of these pyramids has a 15-acre base. How long do you think it's going to take people to make a 15-acre base for a pyramid? You're talking about millions of people. There was millions of people in this country. Illinois, Wisconsin, western states, the Gulf states, they're all over the place. A 15-mile embankment? This isn't easy to do. Our kids have no capacity to do what the ancients did. Nothing. Thousands of mounds. Chicago Tribune. Those mound builders were a strange race of people. This continent was theirs before the arrival of our modern red man, and their high type of civilization is a cause of wonderment. Their origin, their date, and their disappearance are explained only by theory and conjecture. It is estimated there are at least 100,000 mounds in the eastern portion of the United States. You just saw 250,000 miles in New England that they just try to hide. Huge skeletons in the mounds. Charleston Gazette, June 15, 1930. 7 to 9 feet tall. 7 feet 6 inches, Oakland Tribune. Iowa was full of mounds. Giant, Missouri, 7 foot 2 inches. The Carnegie Museum claims an 8 to 9 foot, this is Philadelphia, 8 to 9 foot giant, 1920. There was an ancient race that inhabited this state, and they secured the skeleton. It was 8 to 9 feet tall. The curators, they used to call them the mound builders because they know what to call them. They don't even know who they are. Remember, these people did not have written records because they didn't need them. They remember. They have to write everything down. Like you guys, I talk to you, you got to write stuff down. You can't remember by the time you get to the front. They remembered everything. Everything. They had great minds. They were closer to the Creator than us. Pelican Lake, North Wisconsin. Human beings of enormous size inhabited this section of the country ages ago, was proven last Sunday when the massive skeleton of an Indian, boom, 8 feet, and that was without his ankles. I don't think he had his ankles. Railroad workers are working, they're building a railroad. They said the thigh bone was more like those of a horse. 1873. Guess what they invented to hide what they found? Anthropology started right in the middle of this to make sure you knew nothing. A patient yesterday said, "You coming to my lecture?" I said, "Well, it's going to be about old things." He said, "I'm an anthropologist." I thought, oh, this ain't going to go good for him. He's not a guy that would come to the lecture. Who was in the room with me yesterday? Eugene? I didn't know Eugene was an anthropologist. You could have spent your whole life studying nothing. This was a manufactured degree. Anthropology, to study the primitive races of mankind. Really? Primitive races? They were smarter than us. Professional anthropology emerged in the midst of this crisis, and the people who used anthropology to justify racism in turn provided the institutional foundations for the field. By the last decade of the 19th century, college departments, professional organizations, and specialized journals were established to keep you in the dark. Forever. Your soul will be required. You've been hidden from where you came from. It's going to cost you. This was a very successful thing that was done to this country and the world right now. Association for the Advancement of Science, prestigious universities, and the Smithsonian gave anthropology its academic credentials as a discipline in the United States. This budding discipline gained power and prestige because ethnologists articulated theory and research that resonated with the dominant discourse on race. Further explanations now in progress, 1891. The mound builders were different. They were a different race of people. What did I have now for me? 8 feet 6 inches, Utah. Now my point was, this guy was 8 feet tall and they buried him straight up. They had to dig 9 feet down to dig this guy up. I don't know why he's buried straight up. Very interesting little story. Now, this is important. The mounds contain remains of hundreds of giants. Now we're going to get towards Michigan. St. Louis was built on a ton of gigantic mounds. They just leveled. That what they destroyed to build St. Louis was incalculable. St. Louis and Cincinnati were built on a tremendous cemetery of giants. They just bulldozed them, ground them under, sold off everything they could. They've tried very hard to hide all of this from you. The Detroit Free Press was talking about giants in 1884. Would you like to know about Michigan? Who wants to know about Michigan? Michigan's in here. Michigan's huge in here. In Kentucky and Tennessee, the bones of powerful men of towering stature were excavated. One of these 7-foot men was buried with an engraved copper plate behind his head. I'm going to ask a question, and I don't mean to ask this mean. If I ran into a 12-foot man of war with a copper shield and a big thing, and I went in his town, and Bruce Jenner walked into his town. I'm not against Bruce Jenner. He can dress like a girl if he wants to. I don't care. What do you think would have happened in these times? Would they have given him a special bathroom and a special room? Would they have destroyed society so that Bruce could have his way? Your country's turning into a freak show in front of the world. There's a reason, because you don't know where you came from. If you knew where you came from, it wouldn't have been a freak show. Walmart people. This is the end of humanity. You're watching the end in front of your face. Everybody's seen these. This is a clown show. This is what it's like before the time is up. It's the end. Where's the other one? Oh, he's got one. Cut out the other ones. The other ones are pretty good. I do my shopping on Sunday afternoons. I go to Meijer's, I'm walking, it's a freak show today. The chemicals and poisons are disrupting how people look. All right, who was your country named after? Amerigo Vespucci. What did he say? Your founder saw giants everywhere. They didn't tell me this in school. He stopped at the island of Curaçao to get some water. The guy that was named America. Recounting Vespucci, right? We landed to see if we could find fresh water. They got off the boat. They walked in. Geez, there's some big footprints here. There was gigantic footprints. So, going on the shore, we beheld very large footprints of men. This is his writing. And we judged if their other members were of corresponding size, they must be very big men. This is what he said. As he writes, we discovered a trail and set ourselves to walk on it 2.5 leagues inland. Now, I had to look up a league. As far as you can walk in an hour or 3 miles. 2.5 leagues, about 7 miles inland. They came on a village. 12 houses. There was 5 women. 2 old ones and 3 girls that were giants. They were invited to drink, and while doing so, typical white guy. While doing so, they formed a plan to kidnap the 3 exotic girls. We got to snake the girls. Leave the old ones, we'll take the young ones. But their plans quickly dissolved. This is good. When the giant men of the village returned. While we were thus plotting, 36 men arrived who entered the house which we were drinking, and they were of such lofty stature that each of them was taller upon his knees than I was when standing erect. Men that were so well built, it was a famous sight to see them. Your founders wrote about the giants. When they saw our small stature, these guys almost wet their pants when these guys walked in. All right, we're going to leave the girls. Let's just get out of here with our life and call it a day. They had warriors with bows and arrows, big swords. These are some of the descriptions that they made. These are the pictures from their diaries. Now, do you know what I had to do with some of this? This is a little bit out of... Did this. every day. Now, I'm going to go home. Propaganda. I was at Disney last week for 4 days. If I couldn't leave like the creator at the door, there was nothing in that entire place that did anything except completely push this agenda down my throat. It was happily done, too. It was wonderfully done. It cost me a fortune to have that done. Ancient aliens. Everything's about the aliens. These people were bigger, smarter, and stronger. Aliens didn't do all this stuff. The people did this stuff. Since we're so ignorant, we got to blame it on somebody else. The theme parks, the TV shows, the History Channel. It's all brainwashing. I can't turn anything on without being Pick up a National Geographic. Thumb through that. They do this so well. It's complete propaganda. PBS. I like that voice that steers me down that other trail. It's all from a monkey. Shut up, take your Kool-Aid, and walk. PBS. We have a very special show on evolution, starts at 9. Good. The entire U.S. educational system was a total joke. My entire educational system was pathetic. Most churches, 99% of the scientists, it's Star Wars, E.T., The Matrix, Bill Gates, Hollywood, Bill Maher. Your souls will be robbed by the propaganda that's being crammed down your throat if you're not smart enough to see through it. And most of you, us, aren't smart enough to see through it. Few there be that find it. Buffalo Bill. Who's Buffalo Bill? For Pete's sakes, they used to talk. Buffalo Bill said the Indians used to pull out bones all the time and said these were bones 3 times the size of the present-day man. I remember sharing, remember what I told you? I told a couple of people. I told you from Muskegon. Where's my Muskegon people? Right there. Right there. All along Lake Michigan. There's giants buried everywhere. Right here. All over. Thousands. Between 7 and 8 feet tall. All over Michigan. History of Lake County, Illinois. The mounds were quite numerous along the rivers and in the vicinity of the inland lakes. That they were of great antiquity is evident from the fact that huge trees had come to maturity upon their summits and were awaiting the axe of the pioneers. This is huge. Michigan. You ready? This is the pictures of the trees that were on the mounds. These trees were from the flood. These trees, trees on the mounds were as big as the trees on the side of the mounds. Yes. They said this is 2 to now. On this chart behind me with this thing, I don't need this thing today. I'll get this thing out of the way. I'll screw everything up if I get in. I'll screw everything up if I get near anything. Right here, I got to use this chart here. Noah. Now this is a homeschooling generic chart from 1871. These are fantastic charts. You might get one of these in the present. Here's the flood. In Genesis is 2,500 years approximately. Genesis is longer than the rest of the Bible combined. All this stuff is here. These are where these people came from. You're shrinking as you're going down. But here was the flood. And there's 2,500 years of Genesis. So this is where all these tall people were. And they were shrinking as time went on. But the trees on the mounds were just as big as the trees in the forest. Now when the founders got here, they said to the Indians, who cleared these? They didn't know. They were giants that cleared the forests in America. It wasn't the Indians. They didn't know how to do any of this. They said, we don't know who did this. They did the men before us did this. They cleared the forests by hand. Those things. Unbelievable. My entire life. Compromised. Is this a fact? The ultimate lie, we've devolved from the hand of God into these little runts. We have not evolved from a swamp. That's embarrassing. Everybody, and nobody's smart enough to do this. Not one person smart enough to do this. This isn't a man could do this. Only he could do this. Nothing else could do this. Not one of you, not anybody out there smart enough to do this. This was a complete brainwashing. It has to be the end of time. Nothing else could explain anything this stupid. You couldn't have convinced anybody of this stuff except us, because it's the stupidest time in history right now. And you know it as well as I do. There are extensive burial grounds on the shore of Lake Michigan, mainly south of the Waukegan River. That's where you start. Many of the skeletons found near the lake were of an unusually large size. They found them everywhere. So what are we going to do about this? How compromised are we? You ready? It keeps getting worse. Isle Royal. Why do you think it was named Isle Royal? Simple. All the copper stuff that everybody wore came from there. This copper is all over the world. Isle Royal was a factory. They estimate they took 1.6 billion pounds of copper out of Isle Royal. 10,000 people, it took 1,000 years to mine Isle Royal. 10,000 people mined that place for 1,000 years. They're all wearing our copper. And Europe has our copper on the crowns of their giants. Yes. This world was huge. It was populated by intelligent, inhabited people. For Pete's sakes, they got in a boat. They made a boat. They went across the ocean. We couldn't do that. Not one of you could do that. They did that like nothing. Thor Heyerdahl did it in whatever he did, 30 years ago in a reed boat. Everybody thought, oh, they couldn't do that. They looked at the ocean as a highway. It wasn't an impediment. I can get across that. Of course, they were scared of our shadow. Monday, it was 30 degrees out. Monday, every one of the parents sat in their cars on Cranbrook so their kids didn't have to stand in 30-degree weather. I watch them. They're all sitting in the car. It's 35 out. The kid's just going to die if I don't. And they're all sitting there, and the foreign kids. Now, the foreign kids got a trumpet, they got a trombone, a violin in the back. They're standing outside. Our kid's inside. He's got his coat. He's just playing this little video game. And the foreign kid's sitting out there with all his stuff. He's going to play ball. Your country is going south. Isle Royal was named Isle Royal because royalty used what was on there. That's where your name came from. Everybody knew about Isle Royal. The whole world knew about that. That's where you got your copper from. And the dams and creeks and rivers to move the stuff around is still there. You could still find it. They transported that copper down to the Gulf through a system of rivers and dams that's still there. They moved it all over the place. That's one of the places me and the kids are going to try to go to this summer. We're going to go there. Isle Royal, I want to find all this stuff. It's all here. Lewis and Clark. I read their stuff. Anybody read their stuff? Every time they opened up a mound, found something big, pages were missing. Pages were just missing. They cracked open the door and all of a sudden, done. Done. The core of discovery. They found tons of stuff. Tons of stuff. California, Catalina Island in the 20s. Wrigley Chewing Gum family. Ralph Glidden, Glidden Paints. Catalina Museum found 3,781 skeletons of a race of blonde-haired giants. The tallest was 9 feet 2 inches tall. How many skeletons? 3,741. 81, thank you. I actually have a hockey game tonight, and they couldn't get a sub for me. I said to my coach, people don't know what I do. I said to my coach, I got a 9:30 game today. I said, look, I got a game today. I said, I can come in late or just get a sub. He said, talk fast and show up when you can. They have no clue what I'm doing here. This whole hockey group, I've been 20 years, they have no clue who I am. I go to a game after this. I play left wing for a team. They'll be short till I get there. And I'm doing great right now. We're on good time again. I got a game tonight. They didn't get a sub. All right, 9 feet 2 inches. Next, a femur. I don't know if I want to run into this dude. That's his leg. That's all over the place. But again, the Smithsonian, they'll take care of this, I'm sure. New York Times found a cave containing some 200 skeletons, each above 8 feet in height. The cave was evidently a burial place of a race of giants who antedated the Aztecs. The average length to be about 8 foot 11 inches. That's normal stuff. Why don't you know about this? What did they tell you? How, I'll bet you more of you could tell me the Red Wings, the Lions. Now you guys are smarter. The stuff that has entertained people boggles my mind. People buy movies to watch the same movie over and over. Boggles my mind. Did you forget it? Bones of giant Indians found in Maryland. Georgia sand dunes yield startling proof of a prehistoric race of giants. Well, who is this? It must be the aliens. It has to be the aliens. I see that show on cable every night. It's the aliens. Of course it is. It has to be the aliens. They had sex with men. Right now, the deception is deeper than it's ever been in history. Pig fodder, Magellan. Who studied Magellan? I had to study this nonsense. They just told me what they wanted to tell me. Now get out of here. Magellan. Pig fodder was his scholar. This is what he said. He was so tall that even the largest of us came only to midway between his waist and his shoulder. That's his writings. Waist and his shoulder. This is where they were standing next to the dudes that were in this country. They wrote about this. Why did they not tell you this in school? What did they tell you in school? They told you nothing in school. They brainwashed you in school. Doing just fine. I'm going to make my game. Now I got 5 games in the next 5 days. Now, yeah, I know you're in really good shape when you eat right and you all haven't done anything wrong. If you can play 5 adult hockey games out of 7, come on with me. I'll be happy to suit up with you. I'm 58, and this is not hard. Now, this is from intelligent nutrition, decent exercise, proper adjustments. You can actually do this too. Now, in Ohio is everything. There's ancient forts and earthworks. This is the Smithsonian. This is what it looks like driving through it. They have forts and embankments. There's thousands of them. 18 feet. It's right in the middle of subdivisions. This is right out of the Smithsonian. Fort Hill, High Country, Ohio. They don't even know why. There's holes in them. They don't know what they are. They don't even know what they did them for. 21 feet in circumference, another oak, which also stood on the wall at the point of F through now fallen, much decayed, still measures 23 feet in circumference. You know how big these trees were? This is from the flood. This is that far back. We don't have trees like that anymore. This is what the literature said. 23 feet all around are scattered the trunks of immense trees in every stage of decay, the entire forest presenting an appearance of the highest antiquity. Fort Ancient. This is what they look like. Fortified Hill, Butler County, Ohio. I'm going to show you where to find all this stuff. Now, I'm not done with this journey. I've just scratched the surface with you. I'm going to be on this for a while. There's a lot of things I've just got to dig into. During the 1800s, the contents of many mounds were revealed to include the remains of huge men with estimated heights of 7 or 8 feet, buried in full copper armor with swords and axes. As the settlers moved west, caves were full of these things. Full of these things. At the time, it was not unusual to find stories in local newspapers. The newspapers, they didn't know about censorship back then. They found giant skeletons everywhere. They were mighty races, skilled in the mode of warfare. They understood the mechanical arts, but of their final end, we don't know anything. These predate history. This has to be back around the flood. We're wrapping up part 4, then I'm going to be done. Now, so many people, the stories of myth and antiquity are real. There were other ages as great as ours or greater than ours. What we have accomplished was built on the shoulders of giants. I have a whole list. Kelly worked your little fanny off. That's one of them. Many of your, I have this, she wasn't able to get to this. Francisco Coronado, 1539, led an expedition across the American Southwest. 1539. Ran into several tribes of giants. Castaneda did this. Hernando de Alcaran found 12,000 people in one of the tribes up the Colorado River. Well, now what? If this is true, let me ask you a question. If we don't have an anchor, these people today are being raised with no anchor. What's your anchor? You came from a monkey, came from a swamp, you came from space, is it an alien race? Did the aliens have? Man, you got to have an anchor. You're taught nothing in school today. Now, if I asked a lot of you folks now, where do you think we're going next? Where do you think we're going next? I've asked what do you think's going on. 99% of what I've heard has been total nonsense from all of you. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. The deception is so deep. My father was tangled up in UFOs. Ronald Reagan was tangled up in ET. Ronald Reagan loved ET. He wanted a spaceman to come and take him. What's next? Now the present, the shots, the pills, the chemicals, you've all fallen for the present. Well, I listed all those things. Anybody haven't used fluoride, mercury, Roundup, Monsanto, Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, any of this stuff? You all fell for this. Everybody did. Nobody, I did. I fell for that. So if the present is a total mess, the past, I just went over the past. How did you do with the past? You don't know anything about the past. What makes you think you're going to handle the future well? I ask you about the future. What do you think's going on now? If I sat with you and asked, where do you think this is going? I know where this is going to go. You? It's complete brainwashing and it's a total deception. Did I prove my point yet for that? Yeah. Okay. The end. Historically, all people worship something. Something. A stick, a rock, a log, a sun, a moon, something. Everybody did. All people had a flood legend. Look up flood legends. Every culture had a flood legend. I looked it up. Everybody talks about a flood. Not us. Not us. Everybody has a creation story. Everybody has a creation story. Not us. We came from a monkey. All cultures, the stupid cultures, had a creation story. The stupid cultures had a flood legend. We're far too sophisticated for that nonsense. At the end of time, he got the whole world to think they came from a monkey or a swamp. And your kids learned this in school at the expense of their souls. This is your soul that you're going to lose. A new world order is going to give you a new world religion. You better buckle up for that because it's coming. The new world order is going to give you a new world religion. They're going to give you a new everything. And it ain't going to be like the old one. It's going to be a state-approved religion. Everybody's going to be included. There won't be anybody left out except one group of people. And they're all over the world right now. I'm going to help you find them. Simple. Fear God and keep His commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. You got to crawl through broken glass. No. Be an example to the world without being forced. You know, I've been all these years, I've had 35 years of practice. You guys all go to your doctors. I've asked all these staff members, did your doctor that you worked for before ever bill honestly? Do you know I've never had a yes in my life? Ever? You know how much fraud is in medicine? You guys have no clue. None. Watch the government in action. Lying, cheating, stealing. These are Christians that lie. Bill Clinton would tell you he's a Christian. This isn't. The world's laughing at our Christianity. They're laughing at us. Unbelievable. Nobody in history thought they came from a monkey. Nobody. This was never peddled to anybody. If you love me, New Testament, Old Testament. Something's going to happen with this group. Keep your eyes on that. Revelation. There's the enemy. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. Who is the war against? The commandment keepers. Simple. If state and religion hooks up again, which it's trying to do right now, these people are going to be in the crosshairs. Let me see how I got this order here. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. What that means, if you see that right there, that's important. I'm going to go back to this and have the testimony. The commandment keepers have the testimony of Jesus, which is the spirit of prophecy. Find this group. Now, in this group, I'm going to tell you something. This might not be your family's group. It might not be where you grew up. It will definitely be unpopular. This is going to be the most unpopular group on earth at the end of time. Very simple. That's who the war is against. People trying to keep the commandments of God. This will not be popular. This group will not be mainstream. It will not be the biggest. It's going to be small, actually. So if you're in all the big ones, you might want to take a good look at this because it's never been the big one. Daniel was 1. Joseph was 1. Noah was 8. The apostles were 12. How many apostles got out alive without being croaked off? 1. 11 and 12 were killed. This is not going to be popular. These people are existing in all churches and all religions right now. As time runs out, they're going to find each other in some very interesting ways. Now, archaeology. Start right there to watch what happens with the world. This is all you're going to find Tutmosis. Why is it called Tutmosis? Because there was a guy named Moses. They named him after him. All this stuff, it's fascinating to read all the archaeology. This is how you find it. Amazing discoveries. Watch. You go find Francis Duplessis. This is very important. That's how you find it. It's free. Start with your archaeology series and learn all the things that you missed. Everybody is taking a part in this battle. Everybody. Now, you know what I personally had to go through to get to this spot in my life? The Late Great Planet Earth was probably the first book I read. Late Great Planet Earth, who read that? Anybody read that? I was interested in these things. That's why I'm here today. This is the propaganda right now. Late Great Planet Earth, which I read. Chariots of the Gods, which I read. My dad had UFO books all over the house. I read those. Interesting to read. Because when you read this long, torturous book, at the end, the guy always walked around the corner with the briefcase and disappeared. I want the guy with the briefcase to come back. Didn't take me long to realize, man, this guy always leaves with the plans. He never tells me the plans. As a little kid. The Left Behind series. Oh, the homeschoolers think they get the gospel from the Left Behind series. They just love the Left Behind series. It means nothing. Lord of the Rings. Westboro Baptist Church is some of my favorite ones to watch in action. They're quite a very interesting group. I understand why people are lost. This is what you've been pounded with. I remember Jim and Tammy Baker. Remember Jim and Tammy, the water slide? Everybody get a slide ride. Come on, give us $1,000, I'll let you play on the slide. Pat, let's kill the president of Venezuela, Robertson. When he wanted to kill the president of Venezuela, Pat, you're a pastor for Pete's sake. Buckle up, Chief. Think about this. Run this by somebody before you blast it out on TV. We got the pedophile priest of the week. I'm kind of burnt out on pedophile priests. Kind of burnt out. Bombing for Jesus. I like bombing for Jesus. I think the more we bomb, the more Jesus is going to like us. Don't you guys think so? Don't you have that warm, fuzzy feeling that we're getting from the world right now? God is a woman. I kind of like that. It's a secret rapture. I love secret things. According to the secret rapture, the second coming is a big thing. It's not a secret thing. I don't know where this came from. It's all about Israel. Everything's about Israel. It's all about Israel. Are you sure? Are you sure you're reading this right? They killed him the first time. They're not big fans of Jesus right now. Why do you think he's going back there? Well, I know you have some long treaty that you're going to read to me. Save it. Beheading for Allah. I like beheading for Allah. That's very religiously thinking stuff. The 70 virgins. 70 virgins, man. You got to have a couple experienced ones in the pile. A science fiction writer peddles ice crystals from xenon. Do you realize how many people in natural health get the gospel from L. Ron Hubbard? You'd be shocked. Shocked. Tom Cruise. The snake guy. I just like the snake guy. That idiot that runs around with the snake in the church thing down south. The snake just bit him and he died. So Christianity has looked stupid. I don't like most of the Christians I've had to deal with because most of them took me for a ride. I mean, when they got to tell me this, they make me nervous. They always make me nervous. They're strange. When you find a real one, hold on to them because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of them out there. Just about done. Now, these guys will be shocked. Now, the end of time. Before, I don't care if you believe it, watch it. You got a long winter to watch. Find out what's going on because the New World Order is going to give you a New World religion. Everybody's going to fall for it except a handful of people. This is how you find that. I can't believe I'm not done at this time. Click amazingdiscoveries.org, watch video on demand, total onslaught. Start right there. My charts. Now I think that's $35 online. We have some presents. They're fascinating. I pull this out every year and read it. It's fascinating. All the history, how good the dates are, I have no clue, but it's very interesting. Just remember, Genesis is more than the rest of the Bible. That's where all the cool stuff happened. All the giants were here. And they went all the way through. They were dying off here. Now, history basically is the real story of Jesus Christ. That's why it was called history. It meant his story. Now, I told you the beginning, we covered the present for 30 years. There's the end. Now, they're going to come up here, get your tickets out. I'm going to sell stuff in the backyard. Jeff's going to come up here. Dr. Jeff's doing a fantastic job. Get your tickets out. You have some special, a few special. Your prize today was this. Now, you found out we've all been lost for a long time. I want all of you to go find your way home, start doing your research, find what's been hidden in your life. Amen.
Weaving across the face of New England and creating a literal web of mystery are hundreds of thousands of miles of stone walls, including numerous other unexplained stone structures and thousands of stone chambers. The chambers appear randomly, sometimes capping the ends of great stone walls or appearing to be built into the sides of hills. These megaliths stand silently, a testimony and a reminder of the antiquity of the area, but with no reminders as to their purpose or that of those who created them. The walls honeycomb the land, seeming to guide the paths of the roads they border, or at other times appearing to be randomly directed. They often define what seem to be specific areas, or appear to wander aimlessly through the remote forests. The most recent residents of these areas accept them as always having been there, and credit ancestors, indigenous peoples, early explorers, ancient cultures, or even glaciers as the creators. They are accepted as a part of the landscape, and as such their mystery becomes folklore, and the facts of their creation are hidden in plain sight. They are silent, ancient tracings of times long past, a testimony of a fragment of our history not yet recorded or acknowledged. Yet similar structures appear all over the world and have been chronicled and recorded for centuries in books and in literature. One needs only to stand in the presence of one of the stone chambers, to pause for a moment within one of them, to feel the antiquity and know that unusual means and methods were used in their creation. What has most recently come to light is the incredible number of these stone structures that are scattered across the landscape and are slowly being sacrificed to the expansion of a new generation, which is not mindful or focused upon preserving their own history. Countless numbers of the chambers, miles of stone walls, and other structures have been carelessly dismantled or altered with no regard to the antiquity they represent. The stone walls represent yet another aspect of the mysteries of the stones. In 1939, using data from an 1872 Department of Agriculture report on fences, it was estimated that there was a combined length of approximately 250,000 miles of stone walls in the New England area, a length equivalent to a single wall stretching around the earth over 10 times. The mass of stone used in the walls is greater than that from all the ancient stone monuments in the world combined. Utilizing modern technology, these numbers would clearly be increased exponentially. Because of the vast numbers and extreme lengths of the stone walls, most New Englanders are aware of their presence. They are obviously difficult to miss. Few, however, have any idea as to their purpose, or for that matter, who actually created them. They have been described as boundary markers, stock fences, and property demarcations. What escapes reason and understanding is that they are often random, close together, and without direction, starting and stopping for no apparent reason, going up hills and across ridges, in areas that could not have been planted or used for grazing or agriculture. Often closely connected to these walls are other unusual structures, most notably thousands of stone chambers scattered across the landscape. Despite being described as colonial root cellars, ice houses, and animal birthing chambers, there is ample evidence that these chambers existed long before the European settlers arrived. Various design elements preclude any possibility that they were used as living structures, and aspects of astronomical or seasonal alignments have often been noted. An almost casual apathy seems to surround them. Beside the stone walls and chambers, there are several other stone anomalies, including subterranean structures, stone circles, standing rows of stones, balanced rocks, stone piles, commonly known as cairns, and several other strange structures, possibly even including dry stone constructed bridges. A time clock is ticking. We need to preserve these fragments of history before they are erased forever by new technology and creeping industry, rendering us void of a past and removing the history of the very foundations of our country. Antiquity has attempted to teach us that the true quest of discovery lies not in seeking to create new horizons, but rather in removing the veils of theory masquerading as fact that cloud our vision, and clearing our sight to encompass the totality of our environment. Although New England has the greatest preponderance of stone edifices in the world, scattered across the globe, there are examples of similar structures. Other countries far exceed the United States in their attempt to preserve history. It is important to restate here that the stone structures of New England comprise the largest collection of stone structures in the world. Here we present but a few of these amazing structures found in the New England states and surrounding areas. The countryside of Connecticut is crisscrossed with stone walls, randomly meandering along the roads, intersecting fields, tracing unusual patterns along stony ledges and through dense forested areas. Stone chambers appear alongside busy roads and perch on deserted rocky hillsides. One of the most publicized areas is that of Gunjiwamp in the town of Groton. Gathered on this site of over 100 acres are examples of stone chambers, stone circles, standing stones, and colonial foundations, representing habitation for thousands of years. An illustration of how the environment can reclaim and erase the presence of humanity. Massachusetts as well has an amazing collection of stone structures. From the unusual collection of balancing stones in Lynn to the standing rocks of Lowell, these majestic stones stand as silent sentries of times long past, still at their posts, marking their place in time. New York State's historic Hudson Valley Basin holds the largest documented number of stone chambers and walls to date. Dozens of chambers are right along busy highways, while others are sheltered in the abundant forests that are a part of local land trusts or state and national park systems. These areas have attracted interest in the past decades because of the unusual number of chambers that have been found in such a concentrated area. There have been books and pamphlets focused on the chambers and walls, and a very few dedicated individuals have tried to draw attention to these unusual structures from out of time. New Hampshire's town of Salem has been acclaimed as being the site of the oldest man-made construction in the United States. Called American Stonehenge, this site comprises roughly 30 acres and is a collection of chambers, walls, standing stones, and other stone structures. It is speculated that it was built by an ancient culture, which was determined from the carbon dating of charcoal pits, dating them back to 2000 BC. As of 2010, the states of Vermont, Rhode Island, Maine, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey all have an impressive collection of stone structures, still standing and intact. Walls wind their way throughout these areas as well, connecting and reminding us all of a time and perhaps even a culture and people the history books have neglected to mention. New England and its surrounding neighbors still are the curators of the largest collections of stone structures in the world. From the early 1600s, there is documented speculation as to who had constructed the walls and chambers, and why, clearly indicating that the early settlers to this country were not their creators. Many of these walls are 4 feet high with a 6-foot foundation. Some walls are 12 feet high and 20 feet wide. What kind of animal commonly used in agricultural regions would require a wall of that size? The effort to build the hundreds of thousands of miles of stone walls, chambers, and structures would have been the most costly and labor-intensive undertaking in colonial history. Yet there is not even the slightest mention of this massive construction project in the historical records. The Native Americans in residence during that time were not fence builders. They respected the land and did not partition it for any reason, most especially to mark personal possession. And so the question still remains and drifts upon the ether. Who did build them, and why?